Johnson, sound off.
The Halo franchise is no stranger to truly iconic cutscenes, especially in the original trilogy. From giving the Covenant back their bomb to finishing the fight, there are moments that all Halo fans love to relive again and again. The scene that we are going to talk about today is not one of them. Don't get me wrong, it is a perfectly serviceable scene. It does what it is supposed to do to advance the plot, and it is reasonably entertaining. But it introduces moments that are unfavorable to two rather important characters. Now, with the announcement of Combat Evolved Remake, Halo Studios has the opportunity to weave the grand story of the original games much closer together. And let's face it, if the remake does well, then it will be only a matter of time until Halo 2 and Halo 3 are remade. And that means that the least favorite parts of our favorite games can be adjusted alongside the broader narrative. I am your host, Jacob. Join us as we fix the worst cutscene in Halo 3. Let's provide some context for those who have never played the game before and discuss the scene in question. The Halo rings are an ancient array of superweapons designed to wipe the galaxy clean of all life should a flood outbreak spread beyond containment. At the end of Halo 2, all of the rings are set to remote activation from a location known as the Ark. The first half of Halo 3 sees the Master Chief and the UNSC form an alliance with the Arbiter and his elites to destroy the Covenant, an alliance of alien races that worship the ancient Forerunners who built the Halo array. They are led by the Prophet of Truth, who is a scumbag. The Covenant unlocks a portal to the Ark, and the Arbiter, Master Chief, Commander Miranda Keyes, and Sergeant Major Avery Johnson lead a combined force of elites and Marines through the portal to stop him from activating the rings. The Coalition tracks Truth down to the Citadel, the location where he can activate the arrays currently on standby. Unfortunately, the Citadel is locked behind an energy barrier generated by 3 towers, which are each protected by Covenant forces. Chief leads a force against the first tower, Arbiter leads the elites against the second, and Johnson leads a team against the third. Where Chief and Arbiter succeed, Johnson is pinned down and eventually captured, so Chief and Arbiter are forced to converge and offline the tower in his absence. After doing so, Player 3 enters the game as the Flood arrive and throw a wrench in everyone's plans. Chief leads a combined arms assault on the Citadel and manages to break the back of the Covenant defenders. The Arbiter and the Chief run inside as the Flood scale the Citadel's far wall, and this leads to the start of the cutscene. Truth begins live streaming his activation ceremony, and the dynamic duo realize that they are not close enough to interrupt. We cut to Johnson trying to goad the brutes into killing him, and Truth chastising them for it, because only humans can activate the rings for reasons. Commander Keyes literally crashes the party in an attempt to rescue Johnson single-handedly. She realizes she cannot kill all of them, which leads her to point the gun at Johnson. Johnson encourages her to delete them both, but Keyes hesitates and gets shot by the scumbag. Completely demoralized, Truth holds Johnson's hands to comfort him. No, it's to force him to activate the rings. Feeling absolutely used, Johnson slinks off to pout off screen. There is more to the scene, but this is where we will stop because we don't want to change anything after this point. So now, let's talk about the problems we have with it. Let's start with recklessly flying a Pelican through a window and taking on the brute guard single-handedly. Miranda Keyes has always been depicted as a bold commander, so at first glance this seems to be in keeping with her character. But there is a difference between being bold and being stupid. First off, her character could not have known that the Pelican would make it through the glass, let alone in a way that it could make it to the platform. And even if she does stick the landing, is her plan to solo a pack of brutes twice her size? According to the cutscene, the answer is yes. I do get that there is a time crunch to try and interrupt the ceremony, but wouldn't it have been more logical to take 3 minutes to go pick up Arby and the Chief before you fly through the window? Or at the very least have the elites bring a phantom around in case things don't go her way? Now, don't get me wrong, crashing a Pelican through the window certainly adds some energy to a scene that was dripping with tension. It also gets Commander Keyes in the room, which was important. It just does so in a way that we think diminishes the intelligence of the character. Now, those who want to defend this tactic of crashing the Pelican might say that it was in keeping with her bold and decisive personality. Fine, hold that thought as we discuss the second problem we have with this scene. Keyes comes to the realization that the only way to win the scenario is to remove both Johnson and herself from the equation by way of forced multiplayer. That is fairly compelling, And I will not lie, my heart stopped the first time I saw her raise that magnum to his head. But then she hesitates. And honestly, hesitate might not be the right word. Totally freeze up is more appropriate, because she takes several seconds to pull that trigger at a point-blank target. Now, I fully get that it would be difficult to kill the man, the myth, the legend that is Avery Johnson, or really anyone for that matter, but she knows what is at stake. It is legitimately you and him, or
Humanity, the Covenant, every sentient being in the galaxy.
The rings will kill us all.
And if there was going to be anyone in the Halo universe outside of Chief or an Oni agent having to make that choice, I am glad it is Miranda Keyes. Isn't she the bold one? Isn't she the decisive one? Isn't she the one who crashed a pelican through a wall to stop this madness? But at the end of the day, she freezes. And so do the brutes. I mean, what exactly are they doing during this moral quandary? Eating popcorn flood and watching the drama? She doesn't have a bead on any of them, but it's a shriveled prune who gets the shot off. That's just insulting. To the brutes, to Keyes, to everyone. But let's move on to our last problem. Johnson's response. For those of you not in the know, Johnson is physically enhanced. He was a part of Project Orion, so he is stronger than an average human. The Prophet of Truth is incredibly weak. The gravity chairs that San Shium float around in limit the stresses on their body. They never have to walk or lift anything, so they are fragile, flimsy creatures. So here is my question. Is the death of Miranda Keyes really enough to demoralize Johnson, a super soldier, to the extent that a flimsy raisin can physically force his hand onto the button that will end all life in the universe? And again, according to the cutscene, yes it is. In fact, it's so demoralizing that even after all the brutes on the platform have been killed and Truth has collapsed, he will just sit there holding Commander Keyes' corpse instead of walking up the stairs and undoing it. I mean, seriously, Chief and Arbiter had to fight their way through multiple packs of brutes, jackals, and grunts alongside the wretched Flood so Chief could press a button that Johnson was only 10 yards away from. I get that she was his commanding officer. I get that she was the daughter of the captain he probably watched die when the Flood was first discovered on the original Halo ring. I get that they are war buddies. He may even believe she wouldn't be in this situation to begin with had he not gotten captured. But I just don't buy that he would be this shaken up to let his hand be the one to press the button. Not when it would mean her death was ultimately meaningless. All in all, this scene has a couple cool moments that come at the expense of the characters involved. But does it have to? Before we present our alternative, let's establish some ground rules so that our scene is as comparable to the original as possible. First, the ground assault has to happen. Miranda cannot just pick Chief and the Arbiter up from the third tower, break the glass due to emergency, and drop them right on Truth's head. The armored assault across the snow-covered cliffs, the double scarab fight, and the bridge battles are either too good or too important to really give closure to the Human Covenant War. And having Flood join you on the bridges and then betray you after the rings are deactivated really helps transition you from Act 2 to Act 3, as well as add another level of deviousness to the Flood's development. So, no hot drop. The second rule is that we have to have an important character die. This comes directly from Joe Staten. During the writing of Halo 3, he gave a directive that an important character had to die to give narrative weight to the closure of the Covenant War. And here I want to state that I do understand why he would feel that way. The Covenant have been a nearly unstoppable force in the lore, and having a named character die during their final defeat would make a lot of sense narratively speaking. Ultimately, I do think the narrative they wrote has enough dramatic weight without the death of Miranda Keyes, but since it was forced upon the original writing team, we will also abide by it. Finally, the rings must be activated. Part of the reason the scene has enough narrative weight is the race against time to stop the Halos from firing, and that can only happen if there is a human to put their hand on the panel. And since a random Marine being forced to press the button would just not be satisfactory, we're going to say it must be a named character as well, specifically Johnson or Miranda. And that's it. With our ground rules established, let's see if we can write a better scene than what we got. Just like in the original scene, Chief and Arbiter will run into the Citadel and find that they must wait on the elevator before making it to their destination. And just like the original scene, Johnson will be goading the brutes in truth. Our first change will occur here, because unlike the original scene, Keyes will not immediately crash through the window. Instead, she'll fly up to it and launch a volley of rockets at the glass. The barrage will cause Truth and the brutes to become distracted, and the glass to crack, but not break. Truth will then tell Johnson how impotent and futile resisting him any further is. We will then cut back outside to see that there are a host of Flood looking down on the Pelican from higher up on the Citadel's walls. Back in the Pelican, Keyes will look frustratingly at the glass, before radioing to Chief and Arbiter. She will tell them she has a plan and to meet her outside for a pickup. Unfortunately, before she can fly off, the Flood will attack her Pelican by launching themselves on top of it. Which Flood forms aren't really that important. It could be regular combat forms that attack the cockpit, infected buggers, or even flying pure forms. While infected buggers don't appear in the games, there is no reason why they couldn't exist in the lore. Maybe the remakes will give them to us. We also know that there are flying forms of Flood thanks to Halo Wars, although some fans may not wish to consider that game as canon. Ultimately, it doesn't matter which form of Flood attacks. The end result will be Keyes losing control of the Pelican temporarily and smashing into the already cracked Citadel glass. She'll maintain just enough control of the dropship to crash land on the control platform where Johnson, Truth, and the brutes are located. The brutes will engage the Flood that are either flying through the window or hitched a ride on the Pelican, and Keyes will take advantage of the distraction to try and rescue Johnson after radioing that she is down inside the room. As she exits the Pelican, Johnson will attempt to run towards her while the battle rages around him. Truth will notice and order the brutes to stop him. In the scuffle, Keyes will have to defend herself while Johnson struggles against the hulking mass holding him back. Realizing she cannot win her way, she will pull out a magnum and aim it at Johnson. Johnson will encourage her to take them both out, but because the brute is protecting him, she will not be able to get a clean shot before getting taken out herself. Johnson will yell out in anguish and fight even harder against his captors, which forces a second brute to come and assist the first. The Prophet of Truth, looking around to see that the brutes have managed to fight off the Flood for now, will taunt Johnson. He can even use the same speech he used in the original scene, as it works to mock his physical weakness in our adaptation just as much as his mental weakness in the original version. He will then have the brutes force Johnson's hand onto the control panel while Johnson rages impotently against the apes. After the rings are activated, Truth will raise his hands in exultation, just like in the original scene, as the brutes throw Johnson to the side, causing him to hit his head on the control pylons and get knocked out. The camera will then fly through the activating ring holograms, just like in the original version, to show Chief and Arbiter finally making it up the elevator shaft, and the rest of the scene will take place as normal. While our scene ultimately ends the exact same way as the first, it does so without giving characters mental deficiencies. By having Keyes blast the glass and then plan to go get help before trying to crash through it, we take away the reckless behavior from the original scene. Yes, the plan in our version is still to crash through the Citadel window, but at least she had the forethought to try and recruit the best soldiers in the universe first. And by having the Flood cause the Pelican to crash before Keyes could pick Chief and Arbiter up, it still puts her in the room without the super soldiers there to help her. The Flood involvement also gives a much more robust distraction for the brutes, other than just a single Pelican crashing their party, and the sounds of battle going on while Keyes takes advantage of said distraction to try and rescue Johnson would only give additional urgency to the scene. It also helps explain why Keyes wasn't taken out immediately after pointing the gun at Johnson and freezing up. In fact, by having Johnson struggle against the brutes, it removes her freezing up entirely. Rather, she tries to pull the trigger, but is unable to get a clean shot before being taken out. We still get the emotional gut punch of Miranda's death without the lunacy of the hesitation. And finally, Johnson isn't made to look like a whipped dog by Truth. He may not be physically strong enough to overpower two brutes, But that isn't disparaging, since no human in the game can do that without fully functional Mjolnir armor. Rather, even in the face of failure, Johnson still shows his spirit by trying to fight anyway, a key theme in humanity's war against the Covenant. And the audience will still have a moment to let the commander's death sink in while Truth is monologuing. There are legitimately no downsides here. Even Johnson getting knocked out makes up for the fact that the original game has him just sulking in a corner while the Halo array prepares to kill every being in the galaxy. All in all, we think our scene improves upon the original in every way. You may think the issues we brought up are minor, and you know what? You aren't wrong. But with the proposal of a trilogy remake on the table, even minor issues can be improved upon. And we think that our improvements only add to the mythos of Commander Keyes, Sergeant Johnson, and the Halo universe at large. By giving Keyes more forethought and using the Flood to crash the Pelican, the commander doesn't come off as reckless or stupid. In fact, managing to land the Pelican under those conditions makes her seem more skilled. By having Johnson contend with the Brute while the firefight rages around them, it removes this moment where Miranda fails to act decisively and gives more logic and tension to the scene. And by highlighting Johnson's fighting spirit even under impossible situations, his character becomes symbolic of humanity's determination. But those are just our opinions, and we want to read yours in the comments section below. While you are there, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more. Comments and likes really help boost the channel in the algorithm, so thank you in advance for blessing the channel with your support. I have been your host, Jacob. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today, and I will see you in the next one.
You know, your father never asked me for help either.